Hey folks, welcome to our devotion today. Yesterday we were looking at Psalm 139 and trying to take out of it some of the things that we can take into life with us, that when things are not going well, or even when they are going well, we can sit back and contemplate a little bit more intelligently and specifically about who God is and what He is like. We spoke first of all about the wonder of God's love that encompasses every other attribute of God and who He is. We spoke yesterday about the fact that there is nowhere where God, or there is nothing that God does not know. He is omniscient. And tomorrow we're going to look at the omnipotence of God, that there is nothing that God cannot do. But today I would like to look at another omni of God, and that is the omnipresence of God, which simply means there is nowhere where God is not. Let me read to you what the psalmist says in Psalm 139, and I know that this will blow you away. He says this. He says, "You hem me in behind and before." This is Psalm 139 verse 5. "You have laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is just too wonderful for me. I cannot comprehend it. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, and your right hand will surely hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light becomes night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you." Folks, there is nowhere where God is not. I want to suggest to you the practical implication of that is very easy to see. Let me say to you that there is no substitute in life for the presence of God. No substitute. The presence of people and friends and community at a time of crisis is a great thing. I take nothing from that. But there is no substitute for the presence of God at a time of crisis. Maybe you're going through a crisis right now and you kind of think I'm all alone, that nobody's with me, nobody understands me. Well, let me tell you, you're completely wrong. You're completely wrong. God is there with you. Do not look at your circumstances and determine God must be with me only if it's going well. Not at all. Have a look in the scripture of how the presence of God made such a difference to three little boys standing in a fire who had said, "We will not bow down to another God." And the presence of Jesus was there in the fire with them. It was His presence that made all the difference. It wasn't the absence of fire that was called for them. It was the presence of Jesus in the midst of the fire that made the difference. Have a look at so many other examples when the disciples in the middle of the storm were hopeless. Waves are all over the place. The wind is howling. The lightning is coming down. And they think we're all going to die until they recognize the presence of Jesus walking on the water. And it was His presence in that boat that made all the difference despite the storm that was going around with them. Psalm 23, we have another beautiful example where it says that, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." Why not? Because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. The presence of God through whatever crisis, whether it be the valley of the shadow of death, whether it be a storm in your life, whether it be you feel like you're in the midst of the fire, the presence of God is what will make all of the difference. But I want to suggest to you today, and I want to take nothing away from what I've just said, but I do want to say this, that there is one place where God is not, and that is in the heart of a rebellious person, someone who denies the reality of God, someone who has rejected God and said, "I want nothing to do with you." And God cannot inhabit that heart. You see, God will not come into your heart and into your life unless you invite Him. And so He's not there unless you do. I hope that you have. but God will never force his way into your heart. In fact, Revelation 3:20 says, I stand at the door and knock, and if any man open the door, I will come in and I will sup with him and I'll fellowship with him. But he has to open the door and invite me in. Now that is true in every circumstance in our lives as well. There are some times when we look at life and we think, I can handle this. I'm on my own here. I'm tough. I'm made of that kind of stuff. I'll handle this, and I'm the man, or I'm the woman. You know, I can handle this. And then you find that you can't cope, you don't make it. And let me tell you, you need to open the door. Open the door to the presence of God, because he stands and he knocks. He will not force entry. He will not force himself into your life. He is a gentleman and he waits to be invited. God will never violate your personal will. You do know that. From the time back in the Garden of Eden, where God gave to man a free will, and there's one thing God cannot do, and that is violate that will. He waits to be invited. I would suggest to you today, if you haven't done that, you need to have a conversation with God. You need to come in, as some people have this last week, come and see me. Hey, I would love to have this conversation with you. But you have to open that door and invite Christ in. And then his presence is everywhere. The presence of God makes all the difference. I trust that you know his presence, that you can sense his presence, no matter what you're going through. Have a good day, people, and we will see you tomorrow. Cheers.